No, you don't need to. Look at here. This is the external nose. External nose made of bones and cartilages. The bones are, look at, this is the nasal bone. We have a pair of nasal bone. Also nasal part of the frontal bone. And right here, you see this one? This is the frontal process of the maxilla, make up the bony part of the nose. And then we have, look at, we have septal cartilage. Septal cartilage is this one. Look at, this is the septal cartilage. This septal cartilage has two processes. One is the lateral processes that make up most of the wing of the nose, ala of the nose. Look at this one. This is the lateral process of septal cartilage. But in nature, this is called what? This is called
or alar cartilage.
alar. Thank you. Teşekkürler. Okay. Can you close the door, please? So, we call lateral nasal cartilage, right? Lateral nasal cartilage. But actually, in some anatomy textbooks, this is called lateral processes of the septal cartilage. Look at, this is septal cartilage here. And the septal cartilage has another process. Look at here, a nice model. This is the posterior process or sphenoid process of the septal cartilage. And then we have greater alar cartilage. You see this one? Greater alar cartilage. This greater alar cartilage has a lateral crus and has a medial crus which surround the nares. And the medial crura is pleura, right? Crus, crura. Medial crura fuse in the midline, right here, making the columella. Kolmella. Columella.
Mobile parts?
Yes, that's the mobile part of the nasal septum. Mobile part of the nasal septum. This is what we have about the external nose. Let me put this. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, let me turn this toward you so you can see better. This is the nasal septum. Nasal septum divides the nasal cavity into a right and left halves. Generally, halves are not equal. One is larger than the other. But each nasal half, half of the cavity, has a medial wall. Medial wall is formed by the nasal septum. Nasal septum. We're going to talk about the nasal septum in detail. And has a lateral wall. Each nasal half of the nasal cavity has a lateral wall. Let me show you the lateral wall. This is the lateral wall. Lateral wall. And has a floor and roof or upper wall and the lower wall. Okay? Now let's look at the bones that make up the upper wall. From anterior to the posterior, this is nasal bone, very good. Frontal bone, ethmoidal bone, and sphenoid bone.
Yes.
That's good. How about the floor or the inferior wall made of by
Maxilla. Palatine.
palatine process of the maxilla and horizontal plate of the palatine bone. This is the soft palate. You see, this is the soft palate, and this is the uvulary muscle. Uvulary muscle, right here. Uvulary muscle is there.
That's the small tongue thing, right?
Evet.
And then here is the. Now let's look at the medial wall. That is what? Nasal septum. Nasal septum. Anterior part of the nasal septum is cartilaginous, made of septal cartilage. Posterior upper part of the nasal septum is made of perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone. Right? Vertical laminae of the ethmoid bone. Vertical, perpendicular are the same. And this is the vomer. Posterior lower part of the nasal septum is formed by the vomer. Vomer is one of the 206 bones in our body. Okay? And this covered by a respiratory mucosa and olfactory mucosa. Olfactory mucosa. Now, the most complicated wall of the nasal cavity is its lateral wall. On the lateral wall, we have turbinate or the concha. This one is the inferior nasal concha, made of by an individual bone. Okay. This is the middle nasal concha. This is the superior nasal concha. Sometimes we have spleen nasal concha. And between the concha and the concha and the lateral wall of the nasal cavity, we have the meatus. Meatus means large fissure, large cracks. The one between the inferior nasal concha and the floor of the nasal cavity, and between the, you should look at, put your hand here.
Inferior nasal meatus.
You see, this is the inferior nasal meatus. Which structure drains here?
Nasolacrimal duct.
Nasolacrimal duct drains here. This is the middle nasal meatus. Let's open the middle nasal meatus. You see, if we remove the middle nasal and superior nasal concha, we see ethmoid bulla. This ethmoid bulla is made of middle ethmoidal sinus. Middle ethmoidal cells make up what? This ethmoid bulla. In front of the ethmoid bulla, because there is this structure here. This is the, look at this one. This is the ethmoid bulla made of middle ethmoidal air cells. There is a uncinate process. This is called uncinate process. Running antero, inferiorly, and posteriorly. This is called uncinate process. Uncinate means wedge-shaped, kama şeklinde. This is called uncinate process. This is ethmoid bulla. The between ethmoid bulla and the uncinate process, there is a semilunar hiatus. Semilunar hiatus. And here, look at, this is semilunar hiatus. Semilunar hiatus continues up as the infundibulum. Here is the infundibulum. Infundibulum. This is frontal sinus. Frontal sinus. I can see the opening of the frontal sinus right here, orifice of the frontal sinus. You can see it here. So this frontal nasal duct, right, that drains frontal sinus into the
Middle nasal.
middle nasal meatus or the semilunar hiatus. Now, which structures drain the middle nasal meatus or the semilunar hiatus from anterior to the posterior? Frontal sinus,
Maxillary sinus.
anterior to the posterior. In order we are going. Frontal sinus, then mid anterior ethmoid cells, then middle ethmoid cells, then the maxillary sinus. Okay? So from anterior to the posterior, the structures drain into middle nasal meatus are frontal sinus, anterior ethmoidal sinus, middle ethmoidal sinus, and posterior maxillary sinus. Posterior ethmoidal sinus drains into where? Superior nasal meatus. It drains into superior nasal meatus here. Look at this one. Here is the superior ethmoidal meatus. I'm sorry. This is the superior nasal meatus. Posterior ethmoidal sinus drains into superior nasal meatus. How about here? This is what? Sphenoethmoidal recess. The siphonoid sinus drains into siphonoethmoidal recess here. And this is, again, siphonoid sinus. On its posterior part, you have the hypophyseal fossa, in which you have the pituitary gland, or the hypophyseal gland. If there is an adenoma, the surgeon approaches to the hypophyseal fossa through the transnasal approach, runs through the nasal cavity, and then breaks the anterior wall of the siphonoid sinus, and then posterior wall of the siphonoid sinus, and then reaches the hypophyseal fossa to remove the adenoma of the pituitary gland here. Okay. Now, so far we have seen the ethmoidal sinuses, frontal sinus, and siphonoid sinus. We can see the maxillary sinus, but you know where they are. They are deep to our cheeks. We have the maxillary sinus. They are the largest paranasal sinuses. They are present at birth along with the siphonoid sinus. Siphonoid sinus.
Frontal and ethmoidal develop
Later on, they develop later on. Good. Okay, let me point out another thing here. You see this one here? This is you call this one nares, or the nostril, anterior nasal aperture. And here is the Lyman nasi. Is the Lyman. And till the Lyman, this area is the nasal vestibule, you see, covered by skin. Here we have coarse hairs called vibrissae right here. And nasal cavity is covered by both olfactory and respiratory mucosa. Look at the upper part of the middle nasal concha over the superior nasal concha and corresponding roof of the nasal cavity and corresponding part of the nasal septum contain the olfactory mucosa. Here you can see the olfactory mucosa, where you have the olfactory nerves, which are bipolar nerves. Their axons come together and form the olfactory nerve fibers. They pass through the cribriform plate. Cribriform means with little holes, okay? Cribriform plates of the ethmoid bone, and then synapse or pass through this olfactory bulb. Olfactory bulb continues posteriorly as the olfactory tract. Olfactory tract. Okay, so put this back here. Do you have a question with this one? Where the opening of the siphonoid sinus located?
Anterior superiorly.
Superior part of the
Anterior wall.
anterior wall of the sinus. How about the maxillary sinus, where its orifice is located?
Medial wall, superior part.
Very superior part of the medial wall. Very good. That's great. Okay. Now we can move on. How about this one? This is called what? Choane, right? Choane, right here. Choane, which connects, choane is right here. Choane, right here. Choane connects nasal cavity to the nasopharynx. Right here, we have right here, look at, up here, this area is the nasopharynx. On the lateral wall of the nasopharynx, we have pharyngeal ostium. Pharyngeal ostium of Salpinx, eustachian tube, or auditory tube. Auditory tube. Now, there are two torus here. Torus, in elevation. The one on the roof of the ostium is called torus tubaris. This is the torus tubaris. Under the mucosa covering the torus tubaris, we have lymphoid tissue called tubal tonsils, which are pale. And if they are inflamed, they can get large and block the pharyngeal ostium.
Can you show torus tubaris again?
This is the torus tubaris here.
Okay.
Torus tubaris. Let me show. Here is the torus tubaris. You say torus tubaris. This one is the torus tubaris. And on the floor of the pharyngeal ostium, there is another elevation right here. There is another elevation right here. This is formed by the levator villi palatine muscle. So it's called tonsilla. I'm sorry, torus levatorius, right? You call it torus levatorius. Torus levatorius. Look at here. There are two folds here. One is extending to palate. We call it salpingo-palatine fold. This is the salpingo-palatine fold. Look at this one. This is salpingo-palatine fold. Another one extends from palatine, or to the salpinx to the pharynx. We call this salpingopharyngeal fold. That is formed by the salpingopharyngeal muscle. Look at this one. This is the salpingopharyngeal fold, formed by the salpingopharyngeal muscle. Behind the, look at here, behind the salpingopharyngeal fold, there is a recess here. This is called pharyngeal recess or Rosenmüller's recess. Rosenmüller's recess. At the roof of the nasopharynx, we have the fornix.
fornix, yeah.
Fornix. Inside the fornix, we have the pharyngeal tonsil. This pharyngeal tonsils, if inflamed,
Adenom.
make it
Sorry.
very large, then called adenoid, not adenoma.
Yeah, I know.
Adenoma is tumor. Derives from the gland. So this is the adenoid. Adenoid looks like a gland, but not gland. Okay? And this can obstruct the nasopharynx and prevents the person from do nasal breathing. Nasal breathing. In that case, the person or the child starts having mouth respiration or the breathing, which is not effective. And look at here, this is the soft palate, you see? Posterior end of the soft palate makes up the uvula. Uvula, between the posterior surface of the uvula and anterior surface of the posterior wall of the nasopharynx, there is an isthmus here. This is called pharyngeal isthmus. You see? Here is what? Pharyngeal isthmus, which connects nasopharynx to the oropharynx. Good. Now look at this one here. Look at this one here. Here is the oral cavity. This is the epiglottis. This structure is named based on its position to the tongue. Since it's located posterior and above the tongue, we call it epiglottis. Okay? Epiglottis. The cartilage here is called epiglottic cartilage. Now, between the upper end of the epiglottis and the tip of the uvula, there is this opening. This opening is called isthmus faucium. Isthmus faucium, faucium means throat. Isthmus faucium is the space that connects oral cavity to the oropharynx. To the oropharynx. Or means mouth, you know that, right? Ot means mouth.
Is the isthmus faucium here or here?
This structure is the epiglottis. Epiglottis. That this is the epiglottis. This one, you see?
Şurası.
All of this is epiglottis.
Okay, where is the isthmus faucium?
O geçiş direkt şu.
Tamam.
Isthmus faucium is here. This one. This is the isthmus faucium.
That's all I asked.
Look at between the tip of the soft palate and the upper end of the epiglottis. This is you see this opening here? This one is the isthmus faucium. Isthmus faucium, right here. Now, here is the oropharynx. Oropharynx. On the lateral wall of the oropharynx, we have an anterior arch and a posterior arch. When you go home, look at the mirror or ask your friend, open her mouth, and you can easily see one arch located anteriorly. That is look at here. You see this one here? That is the palatoglossal arch, made by palatoglossal muscle.
That's the anterior one?
That makes up the anterior arch. This arch is called palatoglossal arch, made of palatoglossal muscle. Palatoglossal muscle. Other one runs more posteriorly. from palate to the pharynx. We call this palatopharyngeal arch, formed by the palatopharyngeal muscle. Now, between the palatoglossal arch and palatopharyngeal arch, there is a fossa here. This fossa is called tonsillar fossa.
Because that's where the next.
Inside the tonsillar fossa, we have palatine tonsils, bademcik. I don't know how they resemble them to the almond. Almond means
Yes, almost.
badem, bademcik. Okay, so we have covered the oropharynx as well. So again, here is the isthmus faucium connecting oral cavity to the oropharynx. Here is the isthmus, pharyngeal isthmus connecting nasopharynx to the oropharynx. Look at here, this one is the pharyngeal inlet. Pharyngeal inlet. Of course, there is another half of this one, right? It looks like something like this. Something like this. Pharyngeal inlet. I cannot show it, but entrance to the larynx. If you go posteriorly, this is the esophagus, you see? Esophagus. Look at here. This is what? Mucosa. And behind the mucosa, we have buccopharyngeal fascia. Buccopharyngeal fascia. And in front of the vertebrae, cervical vertebrae, we have what? Prevertebral layer of the cervical fascia. Good. The space between the prevertebral layer of the cervical fascia and the buccopharyngeal fascia, there is an alar fascia. It runs down to first thoracic vertebrae. This divides retropharyngeal space into an anterior part. It's still called retropharyngeal space. The posterior, the deep part of the retropharyngeal space is called tangent space. Why is it called tangent space? Because if the infection reaches deep to this space, it can spread to the thoracic cavity, then into the, There was a representative from Trabzon a couple of years back. He ate fish in a well-known restaurant. And then he while eating, didn't feel that some, I'm a part of a bony tissue stuck his throat. He went to private hospitals. They said, nothing wrong with you. They sent him to home. He came back. They said, we see nothing with you wrong. They sent him back to home. And of course, the same thing happens here. The infection spread to the danger space, then the thoracic cavity, then to the abdominal cavity. Once the infection spread to the abdominal cavity, they sent him to the Cerrahpaşa. They figured out that he got the kılçık, ne oluyor İngilizcesi kılçık? Huh? Fishbone, yeah. Fishbone stuck to his throat, and then infection spread to the thoracic cavity through this tangent space. He died. They couldn't save him. Yeah. He was one of the most known representatives.
Representative dediğiniz milletvekili mi?
Tabii, milletvekili, tabii.
Ben de sınıf temsilcisi.
Hayır, nasıl de?
Ben futbolcu sandım.
Ya you can
Haluk Çebi öyle bir şey olması lazım.
hocam işte Türkiye'de ne olduğunu fark etmek istedim.
Haluk
Yemek
Cem'im
sebebi
öyle bir
çok
şey.
kolay.
I can remember quite
Örnek
his name.
kolay değil mi genel olarak?
Ölmek işte yemek sebebi.
ÇHB'dendi. ÇHB milletvekili. Çok konuşuyordu böyle. 50'li yaşlarda. Çok akıllı bir adamdı yani. Çok konuşuyor, kötü manada demiyorum yani.
Bütün hikayeleriniz çok kötü bitiyor. Dişi çekilen, balık yiyen herkes
Kötü
orada.
hikaye iyi öğretir.
Hikaye var mı?
Kötü hikaye unutturmaz sana hiçbir şey. Zaten iyi hikaye nasıl anlatabilirim diyor. Nasıl iyi hikaye? Sen bana söyle. Sen bana söyle.
Yok mu hocam?
Sen bana söyle iyi bir hikaye anlatayım sana. Tıp zaten kötü hikaye olmasa tıp olmaz zaten. Tabii öyledir yani. Ama kötü hikayeyi iyi hikayeye çevirmek için varsın sen.
Çok motive oldum.
Değil mi?
Evet. Swift'ın bir şarkı yazdı.
And that's why you are here. You are here to convert bad story to
Happy endings.
happy stories. Evet, yani böyle hayat. Yoksa yani her şey olsa doktora ne ihtiyaç var? Doktor kötüyü iyi yapmak için var yani. Yanlış gideni, yoldan çıkanı yola koymak için var yani. Yoldan çıkmak ne?
Cerrah'ta ve
Homeostasis'in bozulması.
evet.
If you lose your homeostasis, you get the pathology, right? Pat. Pat demek hastalık demek. Pathology, right? Ondan sonra yani bu. Ama beni çok üzdü yani. Diyor ki hep kötü hikaye anlatıyorsun. Senin tespitlerin beni üzüyor ya. Ben hep böyle melankolik ya. Beni böyle ruh karamsarlığı veriyor bana ya. Ha? Evet, Haluk Pekşen. Çok doğru. Bak Haluk Pekşen.